Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We'll move on then. Listen, let ask for your assistance here. We have time for one more question, but we won't have time for a scrum. Is it okay with the four of you if we could get an answer on the next question, and then we can move into the closing statements? Are we all agreeable with that? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mike, you have a question, and just state your name, please.
Hi, I'm Anne Liberté, and my question's to Jim. Last time we had a conservative government, Mike Harris borrowed money to give tax breaks. He balanced his budget by selling 407, and you know, he deregulated, and we had a crisis with Walkerton, caused huge amounts of money, killed people. We had.
Do you have a question?
Just let me finish. And we had what else? And we had SARS, and Clement thought it was over before it was, so we had even more debt. And I just don't think we can afford a conservative government at this time as we head into a depression. And I'd like to know, what are you going to do to pay off the debt? What are you going to sell? Conservative government want private profit and public debt.
What are you going to do to pay off the debt?
We have our change platform out there. It's very clear. We're talking about a 2% cut. And let us be clear on this. The Ontario public put Mike Harris in to correct a problem. We had huge deficits as responsible from the former Liberal and NDP government. Somebody had to address it, and Mike Harris did. And you know something interesting, he gets blamed for a lot of cuts. One thing Mike Harris didn't cut, he didn't cut healthcare, and he didn't cut education. And you may not believe that, but that's a fact. That's a fact. And you can look at his budget. I'll say one other thing. Donald McGuinty misleads people. Donald McGuinty misleads people. He took a deficit and he made it much worse in the last 2 weeks of March. All to make things look like the Mike Harris government had some problems. He spent $3 billion in the last week of March in 2004. Didn't care what he was doing to the province. He did it so he could turn around and say, look at the deficit.
Time's up. Mark?
4.5 billion, but look at it today.
Time's up, Jim. We'll go with you, Mark, Neil, and we'll finish with Elaine, and that'll finish things up for our questions.
Thank you very much for the question. And it's an emotionally charged issue. And one government's going to blame a previous government, this one's going to blame that one, we blame them, they blame us. The fact of the matter is that when they were in power, they closed hospitals, they laid off nurses, classrooms were in chaos. With respect to the economy, Ontario is well positioned to weather the global economic crisis. It's going to mean keeping a strong, steady hand. With respect to education, we haven't lost one day to a teacher strike. We have full-day kindergarten. Our graduation rates for high school are up. We're ranked 5th in the world, and it's a time for stability, not chaos.
Neil?
Our government's basic function is our protection of our freedoms through justice. We would keep the justice system alive. Our second function of the government is to ensure that we keep the peace. We would keep the police system. The rest of it belongs to the free market. We would shut down all the 630 government agencies. We would sell off all Crown land and give it back to the free enterprise, and they will take care of the problems, not the government.
Elaine, you have the final word on this.
Thank you, I certainly do, and I have to say I sympathize with the questioner, and I totally agree with the questioner, and I've often wondered where the Conservative reputation for being good money managers came from. I think it's because they say it often enough, they make people believe it, and they certainly believe it themselves. A study of the Federal Department of Finance will show that those provinces that have had NDP governments have had deficits of shorter duration and less severe deficits than all the other parties. And that's even including that terrible period in Ontario history when we had the former Liberal MP, soon to be next Liberal leader, as our premier. So even taking that record into account, NDP governments have shown a better record on deficits than the other parties. But you know, as far as making this be a time to cut and austerity, I'd like to quote Jack Layton, who said there's a time for belt tightening, but it's not when grandma needs a wheelchair and junior needs a college education.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the assistance with that question, and that will end our questions. And excellent questions from the audience, we do appreciate it. It's time now for closing statements, and we'll do these